Hi, I'm presenting to you a pilot study comparing pitch variation and pitch range in L1 and L2 Mandarin Chinese. There are quite a few studies on the pitch uses and pitch profiles in literature. Apart from comparisons of F0 uses between different social groups and between dialects of a language, most of the studies are about cross-language variations, and the results are very mixed. There are some support for the claim that tone languages have higher mean F0 or greater pitch range than non-tonal languages. However, there were very few studies about the different F0 uses in L1 versus L2 language. The study aims are to examine the pitch profile of L2 Mandarin speakers who are native speakers of Swedish and to compare F0 uses of L2 Mandarin with L1 Mandarin. 4 informants are recruited for this pilot study. 2 are native speakers of Mandarin Chinese. 2 are L2 Mandarin speakers, but whose first language is Swedish. The 2 L2 speakers have studied Chinese for many years, used to live in China and now live in Sweden but speak Mandarin in family. The speech materials are isolated words, specifically disyllabic words, statement and questions, simple text for reading, and free speech. Prat and Prosodic Pro are used to extract F0 information with manual correction. Many F0 measures were computed and compared in this study, but in this presentation, 4 measures are presented. They are F0 max, F0 min, F0 range, and percentile of 0. For monosyllables, statement, and questions, what we can see is that generally speaking, the L1 speakers have higher F0 max than and lower F0 min than the L2 speakers. However, the pattern is the opposite for simple text and free speech. In terms of F0 range, first of all, the F0 range within monosyllables are plotted according to the tone type. Briefly, there are 4 lexical tones in Mandarin Chinese, except the first one, which is a level tone. All the other 3 tones are contour tones. And except tone 1, which has similar average F0 range, all the 3 other tones display a very clear pattern. That is, L1 speakers have a much wider F0 range than L2 speakers. Next, the F0 range is plotted according to different speech material. So for statement and questions, the mean F0 range within the sentence is higher for L1 native Chinese speakers than the L2 speakers, but the pattern is the opposite for simple text and free speech. The distribution of F0 is also analyzed. The F0 readings of all statements, that is 40 F0 readings per statement produced by one speaker, were all plotted in one graph. In the bottom figure, the L1 Chinese speakers F0 readings are clustered over a much wider range than the L2 Chinese speakers in the top figures. The green lines are the top 10 percentile and 90 percentile of F0, and the gap between the 2 green lines is much narrower in the L2 figures, the top figures. And exactly the same pattern is observed for the figure for questions. However, for the free speech data, the distribution of the F0 is very similar across the 4 informants. The final discussion and conclusion section, I'm going to leave that to you to read in the poster document, and your comments, suggestions, and questions are very welcome. Thank you for your attention.